Welcome everybody. Tonight on Drew's Paranormal Vlog, we have got a treat. We have with my sisters tonight, we've got Mystical Love and Light, my co-host, and we have our other co-host, which is Sherry Brett, our beautiful sister from PWI. So we have the pleasure tonight, guys, to talking to Neil Storey, whose book is on the screen. This is his new one, guys. Everybody hit that like and go over and check it out. So Neil's going to tell us tonight about witchcraft murder, one in particular, isn't it, Neil?
Well, I like to think I share a story because everybody
Right.
has a different take on history. I think history can belong to everybody, as can stories that have meaning to all of
Sure.
us. So I'm not here to talk at you. I would like to share this story, and I would like to know some of your thoughts and feelings too,
Yeah, sure.
because it relates. My book's called The Blackout Murders, and I created a series of books called Grim Almanacs many moons ago, which were the first series of books to chart the darker history of Great Britain. So it could be anything from witchcraft, witch persecution, ghosts, legends, murders, dark deeds by county. And I'm a Norfolk man, I love my home county. I didn't write the volume for Warwickshire, but a story that I encountered many, many years ago was that of a man called Charles Walton. This occurred in 1945. He was an old man in his 70s, and he'd had a married life, no children. In his old age, his niece, that had always been kind of close to them because she'd kind of lost one of her parents early on, and she went to live with her aunt and uncle. And she was a bit like a housekeeper for old Charlie. Now, Charlie was a country man, big moustache, and I think he had quite a kindly face, very slender. He'd worked all of his life on the land. Now, times were changing. Now, 1945, we've seen a war. It's February. It's St. Valentine's Day. So the war finished in May 1945. It's coming towards an end. And he'd lived through an awful lot. He'd lived through the First World War. But times had changed. People had changed. The countryside had changed. And there's a lot of people coming from outside that don't really understand that country folks have to understand about the hedgerows and about animals and about nature all around them, because that's your medicine. It's not witchcraft. It is a little bit of magic,
Yeah. Just
it
little.
it's there was no national health service in those days. So if you got sick, you had to rely on the hedgerow medicine. You could pay for a doctor, but they were blooming expensive in those days. But some people thought Charlie was a malign witch. There were stories in the village that he'd put a curse on the land. Now, where that came from, I don't know, and whether they were stories that were. This is the sort of thing you'd expect, really, in any time where there's friction in the world. Think of the English Civil War in the 1640s. That's some of the worst times for witchcraft persecution in Great Britain, with Matthew Hopkins, the witch finder general, operating in East Anglia. And I know that there were dreadful persecutions up in Scotland, far, far, far worse up there. So it seems that whenever there's tough times, that people want to find a scapegoat. And it seemed maybe that was Charlie. I don't know. Charlie went to work on St. Valentine's Day. He's a hedger, so he carries. It's a bit like a sickle. It's a hedging hook. So it's very sharp, and it's kind of straight, and then it's got a hooked end, quite a long hooked end on it, and a pitchfork. Now you use the pitchfork once you've done all your hacking out. You'll use that for gathering up, because his back was quite bad, and he'd gather all the sticks up, and tidy up after war. At the eventime, his niece had been doing a bit of work locally for the war effort, factories and all sorts moved from out of city areas, you see. She was working in one of them near the little village of Lower Quinton, where they lived. And that's in Warwickshire. It's not far from Stratford upon Avon.
Hey.
Now, the old boy, dear old Charlie, he'd be back home like clockwork. Now, for a modern generation, a lot of people don't know people like that. But I did when I was a little boy. I knew you could set your clock, you could set your watch by the old boy walking past the window because he was off to work.
Yeah.
And she knew that her uncle was back every night. You know, the sun's gone down, you know, or going down. It's going to be 4:30 or 5 o'clock, whatever his usual time was. He would always be there ready.
Mhm.
And he didn't come home. So she rushed up the farm. She did worry about him. He's in his 70s, you know, maybe he's had an accident. And the farmer said, well, last time I saw him, he was up the field. And he knew which field he was in. He led the way. And they had to walk right across the field. And up near the hedge, there was poor Charles Walton. Now, the sun was going down quite quickly by that time. Very, very much dusk. But they could make out a body there. And the niece saw what had happened to her uncle, and it was absolutely horrific. The woman broke down. Her neighbour had gone with her, a neighbour that had known Charles Walton for many, many years. And they saw that poor old boy pinned to the ground with a pitchfork. Ooh. And the pitchfork had then been pushed back and looped under one of the hedge had been laid, so it pulled his head right back. Wow. Then the hedging hook had been used to slash his throat across. So his blood, some people said, went back into the ground. You know, that if he'd cursed the ground, that was going to break the curse and put all what was needed. It's rather like blood offerings from many, many centuries ago.
Yeah.
You may well have heard of. And even human sacrifice when you go right back in time. Or an animal sacrifice. So the investigation was initially carried out by Stratford upon Avon CID. And the locals said,
you hear their voices?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
You hear me, Mr.
It's not Woody either.
No, it's definitely
totally
we're both hearing it. So I kept looking around because I could hear it, and then I could see Sis doing it as well. And I was like, I could hear a very low, like male voice, and then I heard like a female coming over the top of it. That's what I was hearing.
Yeah,
it's
a conversation going on.
Yeah,
sort of.
Maybe he reminds me very much of my great granddad, who was a lovely old country boy. He really was. Now, the police got involved. They interviewed lots of locals. There's a big prisoner of war camp nearby. They get an interpreter in, and they just can't find anybody responsible. People are saying we didn't see anything. So they call in Scotland Yard. And the most famous detective of his day, and it became a TV series, was called Fabian of the Yard. This is Robert Fabian. Right. And it's even in Robert Fabian's memoirs that this is the one case that he couldn't crack. Because when he arrived there with his detective sergeant, they tried to interview the locals, and they're getting doors shut in their face. People were talking about, there's a cow died in a ditch, the land's cursed, you know, and by the time they got there, that was a week or so after the murder had taken place, and they said, well, he's dead and buried.
Yeah.
What do you want to keep probing around in our business for?
Wow.
And no one came forward. Everybody clammed up. And the murder took place at the foot of something called Meon Hill. Now, Meon Hill is, like a number of the big hills around Warwickshire, said to be haunted by a black dog. Now, we know about black dogs from Norfolk. We've got black shuck. But the black dog phenomenon is all around the place. And one night when Bob Fabian was going back, he'd come down Meon Hill because he'd gone to survey the area, maybe interview some people. And a huge black dog bounded past him. And there was a young lad that he encountered just a little bit further down the hill. And he said, "Oh, have you lost your dog, Sonny?" And the boy's face just went pale, and the boy ran away. There's a lot of dark things going on there.
Wow.
Is that the same like a
killer-
hellhound?
Well, who knows what it was? A phantom hound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who knows? Folk belief in the British countryside was still very strong even into the 1950s. We
Yeah.
didn't have a mechanized countryside really until the 60s. There were still people hanging on, with horse-drawn ploughs and harrows and agricultural equipment.
Yeah.
But the killer of Charles Walton has never been identified and brought to
Wow.
justice.
Wow.
Yeah, that hound that you're going on about is very similar to a hellhound, but
Yeah.
they can show to you looking quite normal, but very big dogs, but look normal. Like they haven't always got red eyes. They can have blue eyes. Can have all sorts of colour eyes, but they're still very dangerous.
I agree
Normally
with you.
a sign of death as well when they turn up, like something bad.
I agree. They're a dangerous harbinger, aren't they?
Yeah.
I've heard of the tales that smugglers used to tell on the Norfolk coast, where they used to say that Black Shuck has one eye, a glowing eye. And I don't doubt it, but they also used to tell stories of putting a shuggy old blanket all matted over a ram or a small pony and swinging a lamp around its neck and driving it up the road to frighten people away if they were thinking about looking when the smugglers were doing their run. Oh yeah. But
I'd have been the type that goes out there and follows it because I'd be intrigued. I'd be
Yeah, where it's going.
I would be out the door.
Good. Yeah.
if you have two red eyes, now that Black Shuck is a living belief in North Norfolk.
Yeah.
A living belief, and I'm a North Norfolk man myself. And when I give talks in some of the more rural villages there, since before lockdown and after, I've given one after, people have witnessed the black dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Now they don't get many street lamps in rural Norfolk, but where they do, where the dog manifests, people think it's very dark. And they suddenly realise that when the red eyes are looking out across at you, the lights are out. And when that goes, when the dog moves away, the light flickers back on again.
Yeah.
There you go. Wow.
That would be its energy, because obviously it's there as a sign. Like when they see the lights go off and they see it standing there with the red eyes or whatever colour eyes he's showing as, they know that that's something bad. That's a bad omen. It's a warning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
where are you based, Willow, in the world?
I'm in Bedfordshire. I'm about 2 hours from London.
In Bedfordshire?
Yeah.
Now, is that near fenland or marshland at all, the Bedford Levels or anything like that?
I wouldn't say marshlands or anything like that, but we've got a lot of woodland, we've got a lot of forest and like hills and stuff. So we do have a lot of wildlife around. Because
I certainly know that in Cambridgeshire, they have the manifestation of the black dog there.
Yeah, well, I'm not that far from Cambridge. I'm about an hour.
And it's not seen as a sort of fatal thing for you, but it's a harbinger of some sort of doom. And
yeah,
you
it doesn't necessarily
disrespect
mean just to one person. It could be to there could be something that's going to happen in the village or in the town, and it shows to give you signs.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to die.
Right.
And that something is going to happen.
It's trying to bring awareness. Yeah,
it doesn't always link to death. It links to other
Yeah.
things that can happen as well. So
it's interesting if we were to look at black dogs, that the origins of them vary. Even in my home county of Norfolk, there are several dogs for this, or the origin stories for the dogs. If you think about it, black dogs have been known to the Vikings, to the hound. They had the Hound of Odin. In fact, as an aside, if you think about Anubis out in Egypt, that's a black dog as well. And down through history, the idea of some dog being a harbinger, a protector, but also a warning. That's always been
Yeah.
present. The word shuck from black shuck in Norfolk is derived from a very ancient. It's an ancient language. Some people say it's an Anglo-Saxon derivation of suaka or skaka, which means demon or devil.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of the oldest.
And they do say that some demons and devils show in the form of a black dog. They do say that.
They certainly do, and it's down over the border into Suffolk, in Blytheborough. Now, that was what, in the 16th century, 1549. There's a place called Beccles, and they had a black dog bound into a church there in a storm, and it was said to have, it was a phantom black dog, and it touched people and it killed them almost like a bolt of lightning. They were drawn up like purses, they described it.
Wow.
And in the same day, on the same storm over at Blytheborough, which is not far from Southwold, it's across the Walberswick marshes. It's got a beautiful, beautiful church there. And another dog went in. Now, what's intriguing there is that the font is damaged, but not the figures on the font, the lip of the font, where the dog was said to have come in through the tower and the stones fell and it smashed, damaged the lip of the font. The dog was then said to have bounded up the aisle. The vicar, the priest giving the sermon, tried to turn it. He did successfully turn it, but the thing went bounding up, and one of the doors had slammed shut of the church, and it clawed its way up the door, almost flipping over, and went out the other door and burst into a cloud of sulphur. It made a terrible stench, but where the dog clawed up the other door, the scorch marks are still there. If you go to Blytheborough Church, you can touch them.
Wow.
500 years on, and they're pitch black. And it's not like somebody's put a poker on it. You go and see for yourself.
Yeah. Wow.
Sounds fascinating.
That's crazy.
It's absolutely fascinating.
Neil, be careful clapping your hands. I could see the pain. I could see the pain in your face when you did that, where it hurt.
I'm getting on all right, thank you, my darlings.
Everybody that's watching, if you're wondering why he's like this, he had surgery. So that's all the information I'll give. That's up to him to say more. But just so you know,
it was on my hip, my darlings, and
okay.
But it relates to my back as well. But I'm on the mend, and I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm here to tell stories and share some great times. But that's why I'm in bed. I'm just having a little bit of... I have to recuperate because the old batteries go down of an evening. But it's lovely to have a yarn, and I will get better. That's the key.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
You're healing right now.
That's
healing
right. That's the word you just keep saying over and over and over. You are healing because you'll heal your own body.
Yes. I'm an obstinate devil. I really... I set certain targets to get rid of the sticks, so I'm off the sticks, and now it's just moving on, getting the mending and getting it,
getting better. Yeah.
And it's good when you've got that willpower to do that as well, because it does happen. It can happen. I remember when I was unwell and that, and I just willed myself to getting better and just doing all my training, so I can get that 100%.
Have you ladies ever been confronted with dark forces yourselves?
Yes.
You've had to kind of contain. Did they manifest in the shape of an animal or creature, or was it demonic, or a black cloud? Or
I would say the two of them have had really bad experiences. I've not really had anything I would say was really bad yet, touch wood. A couple of my partner's mother was with an abusive partner, and I do believe the day he died, they came looking for her spirit. She's in the afterlife, and I do believe that he attacked me when I was with my kids and my nieces and nephews. But that was a long story, so that's about as dark as it's got for me. As of yet, touch wood.
And when I
How
sat,
did you
and when I
send-
was on your show, and that
How
thing
did you
took us
send
over.
that spirit on its way?
I lit
Drew?
my altar up and asked for my ancestors to come, and then within about a couple of minutes, it just all dispelled around me, and I
Where are
felt
your
it.
ancestors from?
My ancestors are from Larkhall, but my guy, we call him Guy, my grandpa, he was actually in the Navy and different things, and I've got a lot of my uncles were in the army and things like that. The uncle I'm named after was my Uncle Andrew. They called him Drew, so they automatically called me Wee Drew when I was younger, so I've always had the name Drew. It was
So
my
there's
mum
going
that
to be
started.
no messing about with your ancestors.
Yeah,
I
so I
like
really, I always feel that energy around me, especially my gran and things. I think it's my mum's family that comes because it's always that energy I feel. So I think it is my uncles, yeah, that come to protect me. They're all army men.
I like that.
Yeah. But
Come
that's
on,
a
who
bit
else is going
sad
to
because I
share with
think
me?
it's got for me is like the spirit of my partner's mother's ex-partner, if you like, came looking for her, I do believe, because my Uncle Danny, which is Danny White Wolf, he said that it was she was with us with the grandkids in the video. I was doing a video, and then all of a sudden on the Saturday night, that down there in the Monksville when I was doing the video, I could feel a different energy around me. So when I had went back the live on on the Saturday, when me and Christopher was live, and I turned the spirit box on without saying any prayers. That's what I done wrong. And then I got attacked, and then as soon as I kind of meditated on what went wrong, that's the answers I got. That it was my partner's mother's ex that came looking for her, and she was with us. And then he just took the chance to come in again the Saturday night because I hadn't put protection up.
You hadn't protected yourself, had you?
Yeah. Hadn't said prayers and things. I thought it was going to be okay. It was one of the first lives I had ever did where I turned the spirit box on. I should have knew better to say some prayers, but I didn't. So yeah, but used to have had crazy experiences.
Yeah.
But what is that?
Well, like my most not so like, I wouldn't say it was really bad, but it wasn't good. Was an experience I had on Sister Drew's show when we had some guests come up. Something happened that weren't
Yeah.
very good, and we had to do some praying and stuff over the show to remove it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It come from an object that some people had, and because of where I'm open and stuff, it connected to me, and I'm the one that got the brunt of it.
While
Yeah.
we were on live, it attached to her.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone see it live happen, like me go funny. But I think my most worst experience that I've had a couple of encounters where I've seen dark energies like in shadow go past me, but it would have been my house investigation. I had a family that phoned me that had been having problems for quite a long time, and they had a very young girl that was starting to be affected by these negative energies. There was 5 negative energies in the house plus a hellhound. Now,
It's horrible when kids are
this
involved.
dog was
isn't it?
showing to the little girl as a normal dog, and she was feeding it, which was making it stronger. She was putting like meat down and putting things down and feeding this energy. Obviously, when I got there, straight away I could see that it wasn't a normal dog, and that it was a hellhound, because I see things and I can feel things as well. So I could see that that wasn't what it was portraying to be, and that had actually was the first thing to hunt out the family to bring the negative energy that was wanting to connect to my friend Vanessa at the time. I will say her name, she doesn't mind that. She had a stepmom that is a witch and has some grievances against her and put something over Vanessa's family. And these negative energies went into the house. I also picked up that Vanessa, in a previous time when she was a lot younger, that people in her family had played with an Ouija board and brought something they shouldn't have brought through, not realising, even though she wasn't there in the room with them at the time, because she was at that property outside, she still was affected.
Yeah. It's so easy to open the door.
When
anyone
I got
can
there,
open the door, it's closing it, isn't it?
Even before I got there, I was attacked. Before I got there, I had several shows where I would sit privately with her, and I would try to work out what these energies were. I did come to find out what they were. I will not name them for the simple reason it can bring them back
I know.
And because of my attacks. But I remember being on a video call after speaking to her, and I was live doing an investigation. The dark energy come up behind me. People witnessed this on the show. Something really dark come up behind me on a live show, and I was like, oh, like I felt funny. I felt like I was heating up, but nothing at that time happened. It was when I was on a video call with a friend of mine. Upside down crosses started to form on my neck.
No.
And I had I've got actually mark. You won't be able to see it properly unless you write up, but I've got little markings on my neck from where they used to be. That they don't look like crosses anymore. But what had happened, if you imagine a priest's collar, well, my neck was just flesh and blood, where it had ripped all my skin from my neck in the end.
Wow, that's
I ended up
huge.
getting the blood poisoning and almost dying. And obviously, because of this problem going on, I had to go up there and I had to get rid of these negative energies because of what was happening with the family. I did get rid of them. I had to do an exorcism. I had to do a cleansing, a blessing of the house and of the people. Yeah. And I had to remove it. For a short time after, it still affected me because it obviously left that house and it came to another place and it linked to me for me helping this woman. And that's when I got the really bad attack on my neck where it started to turn into blood poisoning. I almost died and was rushed to hospital.
That's huge.
Yeah. And everyone's like, "Nut, you're nuts. Why do you still do the paranormal?" It's made me more intrigued because no energy just lashes out to you for no reason. There are reasons behind all of them. So
you can't completely destroy energy. And
it doesn't scare me. Obviously that did scare me. Of course it did, because I thought I was going to die. But it's made me stronger in who I am, so I'm not so phased or scared of that sort of thing.
Makes you start questioning things more, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. That's my
It's healthy to be scared, I think.
Yeah.
It feeds them. If you're going to bring fear and you're going to do investigations, there's no point because you'll feed the negative energy, you know what I mean? So you need
But you've got to have something.
Be strong.
You've got to be strong, but the person that doesn't know fear and is fearless is quite dangerous as well.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I do know, like I'm saying, I will not run from a negative energy. I will not do that. Yes, obviously I shake inside and I think, oh my God, I know what happened to me last time, but I face it, is what I'm saying. I know how to face it.
Face it good, yes.
Yeah.
Because the way that I see it is when you turn to run, you become the prey.
Oh God, yeah.
You become weak. You become weaker than them, so
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll agree with that. But you've got to know what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
You shouldn't enter it if you don't know what you're doing in the first place.
See, with me, I always consider it a gift from my creator. It's the way that I see it. Because ever since I was little, like I say between 10 and 12 years old when it actually started, but I have seen so many different kind of entities because I've seen full apparitions. I see them when they're forming. I see them when they're hiding. You know, I've seen them when I'm driving and they run across in front of me. I mean, I continuously see them, especially, and Drew will start laughing, especially the ones that shock me trying to get my attention.
Yes, I think that's hilarious.
Because if I try to ignore them, you know, like an animal, if you don't make eye contact, they don't see you kind of thing, even though you're just there out in the open. Well, I try not to, like, make a visual contact. So what they do is they'll send out a shock, and they'll shock me. And I'll tell you this story because some people has heard it before, but my husband and he was driving, and we always hold hands, and so we're driving, and I see the spirit. Some of them will start off, especially on the side of the road, like a dust whirlwind kind of thing, how they start. And then as it goes, it starts forming, and then you can see it starts to show itself. Well, I could see it at a distance, so I was ignoring it. Even though I was holding my husband's hand, I was ignoring it, and he's driving and he's talking. And right when we get up to it, I'm still not looking over at it. And my husband lets out a yell, "Ow!" He's like, "What the hell was that?" And I started laughing. He goes, "Was that one of the spirits?" And I said, "Yeah, they sent a shockwave, but it was like electric fence. I was holding his hand, and it went through me and shocked him."
You will listen to him.
Yeah,
That's
but
wonderful.
But since I've seen them all my life, there's very little that I get actually scared of. Now, they may startle me if I turn and they're there, because really they're everywhere. It's just some I've seen, like babies that are like, you can tell they're babies, but their shape is off. Yeah, she says, I showed her, I have a lot of pictures. And so they get to see a lot of what I see, because I'll get pictures of them. If they want to show themselves to me, they'll stay there long enough for me to get a picture. Like a big, huge, giant head with a little bitty body, but you can tell it's a baby. I've seen creatures there's no way to describe some of these creatures. I've seen the shadow figures. I've seen prehistoric animals. Dogs and cats, all different kinds of animals, things that will start forming like different kind of creatures, like coming together to make one creature, but parts of other creatures. I've showed them pictures of that. So it's not so much that I get scared, but sometimes I can feel the presence getting too close, because I constantly have my bubble up. I have my house, my home, my property, me, wherever I go, the vehicles, my husband, always protected in the bubble. So sometimes they'll start trying to get too close. They'll get to right at that bubble, trying to get through the bubble. And at that point, I call upon my ancestors, my ancient ancestors, because on my mom's side, I'm half Aztec, and on my dad's side, it's Cherokee. So I call upon my ancestors to back them off. That's what I do, to get them to back off. And I've actually got a picture of them where they'll form like in a half moon powwow.
Yes, picture it's amazing.
And you can actually see them individually, forming.
Wow.
And they'll face the area that wherever the entity, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, because with mine, it's like they're just freaking all grouped together. I don't even know how to describe some of them. So what happens is when I call upon them, they'll form in that powwow and face the direction where the spirits or entities, if they're evil, then they face them, and then they back them off way away from me. And then once they have backed them off, then they'll, disappear. And then I always say, thank you for coming in and helping me. So that's how, it's not like, oh my God, this or that. It's like, okay, I know they're getting too close. They need to back off. And then that's when I call upon my ancestors to back them off.
I was interested by what you said about babies manifesting. Where I'm from in Norfolk, we've got a big area called Broadland. And in Broadland, and I'm sure there'll be other examples of this around the country, we have things called heighter sprites. Now in woodland, these can be known as will-o'-the-wisp, jilly lanterns, jack-o'-lanterns.
Yeah.
They're a floating light that's often described as a marsh gas. Well, I've seen them, and if a marsh gas behaves like that, or some sort of glowworm, they're at least the size of a tennis ball, if not bigger.
Right.
In Broadland, they are said to be the ghosts of children.
Right.
Because what used to happen was, now you may be familiar with this, if a child is born and they're sadly stillborn, if they die very early on in their life, they are not baptized. If the child was not baptized, some priests would refuse to have them buried in the churchyard.
Right.
It's hard to believe that, but that is a fact.
Right.
And so there used to be in many areas, and this is why some areas are haunted, because these burying grounds were not marked, because they were not consecrated, but there would be a known area, often not far from the churchyard or in an adjacent field, which would be the burying ground for children. In the Broadland area, quite often, if the child had died, they would be bound up in some cloth and weighted down and placed into the river. And
Right.
it is their spirits, rather than being, buried in a field or whatever, they were given back to the river. And that's what these some people say they're people that died on the Broads, and there might be some of those indeed, but
Could be.
because of the sheer number of them, and there's one area just outside Norwich where there is a mill race, where clearly there would have been quite a few bodies there over the years. And I can't say too much about it, but in the property, the numbers, and this is not what I'd call the dust orbs that you see, the number of orbs that collect in that property. I've seen them on photographs. And then it's not a white orb, they're glowing light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Difference.
I've had it as well. Like, you can normally tell your dust orbs because they normally they're like in big bunches and they move either downwards or they just look very cloudy looking. Where with the spirit orbs, they're very vibrant. Some of them are very colourful. I get a lot of orbs that flash. They look like they're flashing as they're moving. They you can see the light coming from them.
That's right. They flutter almost, and it might be that they are part of the origin of. I do know people that have a very strong, and I respect their belief in fairies. And I do think that there are, the folk. We have to respect that.
Yes.
But I think that there are also these highest bright lights that people may have mistaken for fairies.
Yes, the different things.
Labelled them as fairies in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That if you can't explain it, you name it in a way that makes sense for your culture or your local area.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
I know that I have fairy energy around me. I do work with fairies. I have a place that I go up to, so I know. And I have had an interesting thing on the video where we actually caught a fairy going. It was on a show when Chris and that was up.
I think it was the very first interview we did together, wasn't it?
Actually come from my head and went up, and that was one of my fairies that I work with. And they were like, "Oh my, Chris's face, what was that?"
Yeah. Sure, there's a.
It was so cool. It was so
funny.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a place
you have to
called?
be careful with them because they can very much switch and change. If you're going to work with fairies, you've got to have a very strong connection with them. You've got to believe and respect their way because they can be very dangerous. Believe me, they may be small, but
they actually have the ability to take themselves out of pictures. If they want to, they can manipulate it, because I caught a picture, a fairy sitting on a ledge, not a light, not an orb, a fairy and it was probably, this is my little stylus, it was smaller than this, and sitting on the ledge, and I got the picture, and I'm zooming in. See, I believe that if you have to zoom in on something, then it's not really there. You have to see it with your own eyes, get the picture without zooming it in. Right. So all the features are, there, everything. I sent it because I'm in the mountains of Tennessee, United States. So I sent the picture to a friend of mine that she's a psychic medium. I sent the picture to her. She's in South Africa. So I send the picture to her. She looks at it, she comments, she circles it, she talks all about it and everything. She sends it back to me where she's got it circled and stuff. And then shortly after that conversation, she sent me a message and said, the fairy is missing out of the picture. And I said, what?
Crazy, isn't it?
So, so when she looked at it, so I got my picture that I took, and it was not in there either. So both of ours, it was gone out of that picture. So how it happened, I have no idea. But it was just the weirdest thing that we both commented on it and everything, said everything we could see. And then all of a sudden, shortly after that, it's like, poof, it's like, okay, you saw me, you don't need me no more. And it's gone.
I had a similar experience when I was up with the guys that I helped with the house now. We was out because I stayed up there for several months to make sure the house was okay, make sure that they're okay, learn them how to be certain ways so they don't have it coming back. And we went out on loads of walks, and I remember going to this woods, and her partner was a skeptic, didn't believe in any of this stuff until what happened to me, and that made him change. But we were out and I was telling him about fairies. He was like, no, they don't exist. Like, I believe in spirits and whatever. So he was like, oh, I wish there was a way that you could see. And he caught a fairy in a picture sitting on a tree branch, just sitting there vibrant, all long haired. She was looking towards him. 4 or 5 witnesses see this picture. And then when he went back to look at it 2 days later, she wasn't in the picture anymore. He was like, where's that fairy? I was like, they have the capability to move themselves from something if they don't want it to be seen. If they show you at that time till they think it's right, then they'll remove themselves because they don't want other people to know about them. That only want certain people to know about them.
Yeah.
And it was like, he goes, you
That's
know a lot
incredible.
about that. Well, I have to because I work with them.
Yeah.
You know, so they're
So how
fascinating.
did you find your first fairies, or did they find you?
It was more finding me, to be honest. I was young, actually. I was laying on my bed in my bedroom, and I used to see these little lights come tinkling up at my window. Like, just at first I thought they were glowworms or something. I mean, so I used to just sit there and watch them. But one night I remember waking up on my bed, and these very small people were walking up my body. They were walking up and standing there and just touching my face and
Wow.
smiling at me. And I was just like, being a little girl, I got up off the bed screaming, obviously, because I didn't know what the hell was going on. But they would come very often, and I would sit on my floor at night, like reading them books, and they'd sit on the floor, and that's what I used to do with them. I used to speak to them and that. Then through time, as I got older, they learned me things about nature. They learned me about how to respect different energies, the same as the spirits did. And I remember my first time being accepted into their realm. I was able to see their realm. It's not like anything you've ever seen in your world. It's so beautiful. There was water coming just from nowhere. Like, there wasn't mountains, or it wasn't like the mountains were doing the water. It's like the water was falling from the sky. It was amazing, but it was a water, like, just
Wow.
mad things. But they don't let everybody go into those realms. You have to really work hard with them and gain their trust to do that, and never walk into a fairy circle, because things can happen to you if you're not welcomed.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get sucked in and you don't come
Oh, yeah.
out.
Yeah.
That's the last 2 weeks we've been out in the wilderness up ghost hunting, and we've came across little trees that's got fairy doors and things on them. Last weekend, I think.
And
That
it's
video, yeah, Drew, that video you said, it was shortly after that I could see the lady and standing next to the tree, like looking on the side of the tree.
Was that where it was? Right there? Right.
It was right. It was right after. It was right past it. Right past it.
Yeah.
like, you can, like, a lot of people will try and go out and search for them to see if they're real and stuff, but the best thing with fairies
Yeah,
is
they're
let
not
them
gonna
come
show
to you.
like
They
that.
let them come to you if they want to show themselves, because they're very good at sensing a person's personality and character. They know if they can trust you or not. So
Yeah.
it don't matter how much you search. If they don't sense something in you they like, they're not going to entertain you. You're not going to see them. That's just how they
The
are.
brownie I want to do my housework. I want a Scottish brownie. They help you around
When
the
I
house.
got that picture of the one sitting on the windowsill, it was actually a portal behind it.
What was that?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
portal
from a
behind it.
dimension.
Is where I
Yeah.
seen it.
The camera flashed really thing with there, and it nearly made a face. Did anybody else see that watching on Mystical's screen? There it's again.
Yeah.
Almost coming up another face. I can't wait to slow this down to see if that is a face.
Oh no, I can't see it.
There
Back.
was definitely something that like appeared in that.
Yeah, it looked like a face appeared and then went away again. Like
They are fascinating creatures. They are, and if you're
across
loyal to
fairies,
them,
Neil.
and they can be really good for you, but don't overwork them and don't expect too much from them. You'll always have to give back. It's no different to the spirits. You give back to them, you thank them. They are like, you know, like we've got our angels for heaven. They're the angels of the forests and of
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
angels of the earth. I
nature. You know what I mean?
agree.
That's what they are.
I agree. I don't profess to have the ability to see the little people.
Yeah.
The maternal line, the feminine line, particularly of my grandmother's family, had the second sight. My
Right.
mother won't use her second sight. She can charm warts. She frightens herself when she does that. She's very good, and she can divine if something is lost, and she will help people with her pendulum. But that's very, very low key. But
Right.
she has that. But I think, that the little people are there. I've never seen them,
Right.
but I'll tell you what happened. I went to a place called Dunino Den, which is up in Scotland, and I think it's one of the most special and mystical places I've ever encountered. If people have never been there, I'll describe it. It's in a forest. There's next to nothing to show it's there, and it's on 2 levels. There's a stream that runs by, and there's lots of rock, and at the top there is a small pool, which we understand was used for the sacrifice of an animal,
Right.
a blood sacrifice. And there's said to be a footmark, and I've seen there's certainly a mark in the stone where something has been put there again and again and again, where the foot has gone. They said it was the priest's footmark. They'd slit the animal's throat over the pool, and then the body of the animal would be thrown into the water. Beside this pool is a set of steps cut into the stone that takes you down to the den or a little glade. Very intimate, and people have left coins and gifts and ribbons for the little folk down there.
Yeah.
And I felt it was a very, very special place. And they were a respectful group that I was with. I will give them that. But I felt, I know that people want to find evidence of the paranormal. But I felt that if they'd only turned their phones off and let this be your time, without any electronics, live, no cameras, nothing. But sometimes the paranormal, the special world, it's just for you and those with you at that moment, even just for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's something. Not everybody's going to go with it, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just for you. You will never convince the whole world that no matter how good your footage might be, that it's genuine, even if it is absolutely 100%. Some people, there's an old saying: "There's none so blind as those that won't see."
Exactly.
You won't do it, and I think for the gift of being able to be in touch with whatever the entities are there, I felt no badness. I did feel if you do misbehave or if you take somebody away,
that put you back in your spot.
Definitely. But what did happen was I let the group go. Now I'm not saying I'm special or anything else. I just loved the atmosphere there. I felt it was special.
We all think you're special. That's why we're here.
Bless you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you. But I just felt right there. And
Yeah.
I wanted to have
Welcome.
that time.
Yeah.
You lot can go. And I just walked really slowly out, soaked it all up, and I heard footsteps behind me. Now, this is not on a pathway. It's footsteps over woodland.
Right.
Now,
Yeah,
you've
like
got-
they're on the trees or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they were footsteps behind me, and it was like they saw me to the edge of the forest, and I don't know.
Protecting you.
Yeah,
it
just
felt-
walking you out.
It just felt. Thank you very much. You've understood,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
Yeah,
sure
they
that
do.
If you went back, you would get received the same, as long as you didn't have a camera and things.
It's their way, like when you feel that, it's their way of accepting you, but also protecting you. Obviously, you're coming into a new place, and they know what happens in them places, so they would have been protecting you. They would have been able to sense your energy and that you was a good person. So that's another reason. And believe me, even it's no different to working with spirit when you see these fairies and that. If they don't like you in an area or they don't trust you, you will know that they don't
Yeah.
like you. When
I
you feel
think
calm,
you're
you feel
right.
placid, you feel loving, they're inviting you. They
Well,
like
people-
your energy. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
People don't understand is they have the ability to jump to the spiritual side, to do things that they never thought was possible. Like you said, turn the TV off, turn this off, turn that off, you know, whatever. You just have to tune in to the right frequency for you. You don't have to know what that frequency is. When you hit that frequency, you're going to know it, because then that's when things will start showing itself and start coming in and start communicating. You just have to be open and listen. Other than being on YouTube here or on the phone, mostly on YouTube, we don't even watch TV. We don't have cable. We don't watch TV. We don't watch the news. But yet we know everything pretty much that's going on in the world. But we don't even have the TV going, you know.
Yeah.
Now, some stuff my sister will send me a message, you know, and update me on a few things that may be happening in my area or something like that. But other than that, if people would just calm themselves, sit and listen, and I'm not even talking about meditating, just sit quietly and listen, and things will just start opening up. And then the more you do it and the more you do it, the more you'll start going, oh, there is another world out there. It's a spiritual world. It's a holy spiritual world. It's just a whole new frequency that you're picking up.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely
They are
right.
very secret people, very secret creatures.
I think you're all
beautiful.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is that with ghost hunters or anybody engaging with the world of the paranormal, they've got so used to going straight in with electronics.
Yeah.
And I think, look at a good baseline investigation. Your baseline, there's nothing going on. There might be a camera taking photos.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on. Because let's face it, I think if you're able to calm it down and find your senses, hone the senses that you have, the gifts that you have as somebody engaging with the paranormal, if you don't use those senses, you're just going to turn them off.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
I think everybody's got to do a walk through and see what they feel in the area, and then that way you know when it changes, whether you've got gifts or not.
I always go like a couple of hours, like 3 or 4 hours before I'm actually going to investigate, because I like to go and I like to lay on. Obviously if it's raining, I'm not going to be laying on the ground because I ain't getting mud on me, but I will sit somewhere and I sit and I'll shut my eyes.
Oh, come on, Sherry.
I'll feel, I'll see, and I accept all of the energy to come into me. Obviously, I do my phrases like only good energy and stuff like that, but I will sit there. But if it's a really nice hot day, I'm known to get on the floor and lay, because I can feel the vibrations of the earth.
That's
I can
the
feel
stuff.
the vibrations of them around me.
Yes.
And this gives them that understanding that I'm a passive person, I'm a good person to approach. That's why I get a lot of energy around me all the time. Because I am
That's why I always tell the spirits to feel the energy. There when we were at, I don't know if it was yesterday or last week, I was saying to the spirits, just walk with us, feel our energy, and you'll know that we're nobody bad and we're not here to harm you. Because if you just give the spirits time and they give you time, you do kind of feel each other out and you know where to communicate and where to stay away from. Yesterday, they made it plain and clear they didn't want us there at the end up. And I do think it was because I gave that little offering. I do feel as if they realised I was a witch and didn't want me there.
Yeah, and I said that in a message to you. I think that some of them were probably scared because of you being a witch. Some of them would have been accepting, some of them wouldn't have been, so...
Yeah. I just think they gave us the warning to get out, and my guides and whoever it was, probably Timber or Astro or somebody, made the wind come really high, so we left, because it would be the only way we would have left was to feel that wind so intense, I think.
Yeah, and that is their sign to you, isn't it? If you think about it, like they're like, no, like that. Maybe they got to the point where enough was enough. They didn't want to speak anymore. They did, because you put that down. They're like, oh, hang on a minute, like is she trying? Yeah. Because you don't know what's happened to those in the past. You know what I mean, you don't know what's happened to them, so they felt a bit offended or they're scared of you. There's a lot of reasons. The thing is, it's amazing to have equipment, and it's amazing to be able to catch the evidence. But the best tool in your ghost hunting equipment is yourself.
Well, definitely.
Right.
And you don't have to be gifted to do it.
Yeah. Yes. See, I do it 2 different ways. Yeah. Being that I can see when I do like a paranormal investigation, I've said before, it doesn't do any good that if I see 100 of them standing around. What good does that do? Nobody else can see them. But if I see them and can communicate with them, and I bring out my devices, because Lord have mercy, I have a lot of devices.
Oh yeah.
So I bring them out so that other people can, if I say, there's a spirit there, or I ask the spirit a question or whatever, or I even say what they're, saying, or where they're standing, and then the equipment picks it up and says, yes, that's me standing right here, then they're able to make that connection of, hey, she ain't full of shit, it's saying exactly where they are. Now, when I go into houses to cleanse houses, I don't use any equipment. I don't go in with no equipment at all unless I have, like my stones or something that I'm wearing, because then I go in and it's just me, and big puddles of blood all over the floor and everything, because they're trying to scare you to leave. And it's not just me seeing it. I'm going in because it was reported, it was there from the families that live in the house, what they're seeing, and it's scaring them, and they're running out of the house, and they're waiting outside for hours in the middle of the night, scared to come back in. Well, when I go in these places, I don't take equipment. I just go in myself. I do my investigation and ask questions and what I feel and what I see, and then I'm able to cleanse it, because I'm not having to prove to someone else that something is there. They know it's there because they're seeing it and they're living with it. And then when I go in and I do what I need to do and cleanse the area and stuff, and then I leave and I tell them I'll get in touch with you in a few days, you let me know how it's going, if the baby's crying all night and they're like, we don't know what's going on, it's not anything, we don't think it's anything that the doctors can pick up on, then I'll go in and I'll find out. And I normally I don't take the baby, because most babies are going to cry with a stranger. So I'll tell the parent to stand there and hold the baby, so the baby will be quiet. And, I can look at the baby. I can see if there's anything attached to the baby, what I need to do. I can cleanse the baby and say, okay, where's the baby sleeping? Cleanse the whole bed, under the mattress, everything. And then I'll check back with them in a couple of days, and they'll say, this baby hasn't slept in 6 months all night, and last night this baby slept the entire night and the next day, and I'm like, all right, if you start having an issue again, contact me. And they'll never contact me again, because the issue is, is gone. So those things I don't go in with no equipment. But for the audience on YouTube, I'll take my equipment in so they can see the little sparkly lights and everything going off. I don't have to say, see, I told you.
Yeah, there are just some things that we have to work with and do that can't be shown to everybody, and it has to be completely ourselves. If you're walking around,
to see piles of blood and things, to be honest.
What you're there to do, and like Sister Mystical said, these people already know their place is haunted. They've had these experiences. They've sent the evidence. So it's a different scenario. We're not there to educate other people. We're there to get rid of it. There's a difference. But I've had it where there's been clients that have said, "Can you record and do a live show when you're doing the cleansing?" They wanted their place to be put out there. They wanted things like that to be done. So there has been times where I've filmed what I'm doing, even if I've not showed it on YouTube.
Welcome, Bubbles.
I've made it through doing a video recording and sitting back with them and then watching it. You know what I mean? Because some of them have asked, but 9 times out of 10, if it's a cleansing or blessing, I don't do
because
either.
Yeah, because it's not our place to tell people, like the kids that was playing with a Ouija board but wouldn't tell their parents. So after I figured out just going in, checking the area out, and then getting permission from the mom to speak to the kids. Now the kids could understand English, but the mom couldn't, so I had to have the translator explaining to her that I just need to ask the kids a couple of questions. I already know the answer, but I want to see their expressions on their face. And then ask them if they were messing with the Ouija board, playing with the Ouija board, or if they were with friends doing the Ouija board or whatever. And So the kids didn't answer, but I could see it in their face. Oh crap, she knows. So
Yeah, that's what it was like
then,
with Vanessa.
yes. So then
Kind
I
of blank
would,
look like.
yeah. So then I asked the girl to ask the mom to say, I'm not going to tell them what not to do. I'm not going to lecture them. I am not their parent, but I want to make sure that I pass it on to them. What is the proper way to use it and close it in case they do it again? Because if you just say don't use it again, they're going to use it again. They're a kid. I mean, God, I was a kid myself, you know. But I wanted them to know how, so that way if they're at their friend's house or whatever, they would know the proper way to, you know, to do that. And so the mom said, you know, yeah, that's fine. And so I did that. And it was almost a relief. I could see the kids' faces of knowing what had happened was because of that. But they would have never told their mom that that's what they did.
Probably not. Have you got gifts, Neil? Can you see the spirits and sense them?
I've seen things I can't explain.
Right.
I don't pretend to have the gift. I hope that I've got the sensitivity to understand and to care. But
right.
I don't pretend that I can certainly sense atmospheres. But I think that's something that's innate in many of us. If you're not reliant on various electronics, you can send. I mean, for example, if you've had an argument with somebody at home, it happens now and again in any life, and you go out of the room, you come back, you know they're still sat in there.
Yeah.
They could be anywhere in the house, they could be in the garden. If they're still sat in there, there they are, and the row's going on.
Yeah.
It's the atmosphere, and I have experienced that when there's no one in a property that I'm investigating. You know it. You can feel it. But I don't think that's necessarily a gift. I think it's just something that's innate.
Yes, isn't it? Guys, remember and check out Neil's book. This is his latest book that is up on the screen. Do you want to tell us a bit about what's all in this book, Neil?
The Blackout Murders.
Yes.
Well, every story relates to a murder that was brought about really, or under wartime conditions. So it's involved in the blackout, or the body was discovered in the blackout, or because of the extremes of wartime, things happen. So sadly, the truth of wartime is somewhat distorted now, because a lot of people have got the nostalgia goggles on, and everybody's coming together in wartime. It's jangling pianos in the East End and Knees Up Mother Brown. And yes, there was a wonderful wartime spirit that did get people through in the main. But there were some pretty dark people out there too that used the blackout to their advantage. So there's poor old Charlie Warren. He's killed in the daylight. He's discovered in the blackout. But there were cases, for example, early on in World War II, there were going to be no places for animals in air raid shelters. And so there was a mass cull of pets.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Killing their dogs and cats. Yeah, it was a massacre, really.
Right.
But the trouble was, some people took it further and killed members of their family.
Right, because they didn't want to leave them behind and things.
They thought it was the kindest thing to do. One fellow was an air raid warden. He didn't want his elderly mother hiking around the air raid shelters of London in the dark. And so he strangled her.
Yeah.
Another lady had a husband that was going blind, and I think unfortunately the poor woman was under some sort of mental illness, sadly, after being... Yeah, that was a bit odd, wasn't it?
Did you hear that? That was said Diablo.
I heard something odd.
That's what me and Sherry was talking about, because we're hearing them talk.
I'm not kidding, that went Diablo.
Yeah. Well, this is the trouble. You see, the devil and all his works can work in these extreme conditions where perfectly ordinary people can be
We have Bishop
vulnerable.
Brian coming for a chat on Wednesday.
It'll be interesting to explore that with those that have more knowledge of that. I mean, I'm a historian. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to have any other skills than hopefully a grain of humanity or two.
But you've also got a way of telling the story, though, Neil. People can go and look at history books and know a lot of things, but you've got a knack of telling a story as well. You know?
Yeah, people listen to it. People, I'm not facing it. A lot of people get like, not me myself, but there are people that don't want to read books now because a book don't quite say the way a person's voice telling the story does. You know what I mean? So they go away.
The way you tell it.
You've got that voice, and you're very knowledgeable in what you're talking about, and it's really
Yes.
So
Well,
Neil,
great stories.
you
Put it
need
that
to
way.
be. You need to become a millionaire, Neil, and you need to buy a ticket for all three of us and fly us out to your area, and we can all do an investigation together. Now, how cool would that be?
What a dream that would be. Well,
he'd most definitely have some weird experiences that night when he's with us three. Definitely.
I might have a bit of difficulty getting over to Tennessee, but Scotland's literally just over the border for me. And a big chunk of my family live in Norfolk. And I've got very dear friends in Cambridgeshire. So an investigation in Bedfordshire is certainly not impossible.
I definitely think we will meet up at one point in time. Guys, Neil is in a lot of pain. I can see the grimacing on his face. I'm not going to keep him much longer. Okay, but listen, guys, Neil has loads of books out. Today, when I was trying to find the link for his new one on Amazon, there's about 10. How many books have you got out, Neil?
Oh, I don't know. I think there'll be about 10 out there. But
there's about 10, guys, so please check them out.
But I've been writing since I was in my teens. My first ever books, they're local, just a love of local history. And I saw that times are changing. The stories weren't being passed on. They could have been lost forever. And they were absolutely typical stories that gave us that lovely local colour. But I always loved ghosts and legends, and I'd always be the kid that said, well, why is that house is haunted? You know, people say, well, they say it's haunted. I said, well, who are they? Why is that haunted?
Can we go see?
Let's go experience it.
It's interesting.
These links, guys. And we will get Neil back up as well when he's feeling a little bit better and things, because I can tell he's in a lot of pain with his shoulder.
That's
so
why
we're going to let
like that and looking away because I could feel it. I'm like,
we're going to let him go, guys. So everybody check it out. Is there anything you want to tell them, Neil? What's your program you're on?
Oh, I'm one of the team of regular historians on Help My House is Haunted. I've been with them for several series now. You're only allowed to appear as historian on one episode.
We gotta become a historian.
Oh, are you that right? Wow. There you go.
There we are. All you got to do, if anybody really can be a historian, if you've got the passion.
Right.
If you've got to have the passion.
I've got a terrible memory.
I think you've got to want to share.
Right.
Tell those stories, to tell them out as they were told to you, and maybe if they were told in a certain way and you can give a different perspective that we've learned a little more since then, you know. Do tell it, but always be respectful.
So just knowing one won't work.
They do say that there's one version, there's another version, and then there's the truth, don't they? So there's 3 sides to a story, technically.
Well, you know, there's some people. I like to say, some people they don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yes, I have a very imaginative mind and just think, we'll spruce it up a little bit. And
you don't need to. You often don't need to, because if you dig enough and research well, I like Help My House is Haunted because they never say, oh, we need a ghost to do this. I said, no, don't tell me anything either. Tell me where the place is, and I will research out my way. And not every newspaper is online. Not every story is online. Not every book is online. So, if you know, I'll say, right, what's happened? You've got a 1970s house middle of an estate. Why on earth is it haunted?
It's
And
still
one
there.
of them, I dug out, and it was actually a demonic infestation that went back
Wow.
centuries. Outside Peterborough. Yeah.
Oh,
An incredible,
gone
and the family was family, two, mum and dad, kids, terrified out of their lives.
Yeah.
It was a named demon. And
I went to
luckily-
Sherwood Forest, Neil. That's a really
Sherwood.
good. That's Sherwood Forest. I actually had Sherwood Forest for 3 to 4 nights. I actually
Wonderful.
spoke to the council. That's got a lot of history.
I
And
want
just
to
to
go
be able
there
to
so
walk around
bad.
that and feel, because it isn't just to do with Robin Hood. It's all of the Romans and the
It's
Tudors
ancient.
and all. It goes back so far, and all of the
Yeah.
history, and then you can feel it in the trees, in everything around you. It's,
Oh,
absolutely.
no, I really want to go to. I really, really want to go to Sherwood. It's one of the places that's on my bucket list for this year.
Well,
be honest.
Sherwood's magical and get there, but also Rendlesham Forest in Suffolk.
Right, Rendlesham.
Now
I've
that's
had research.
infamous because in 1980 there was a crash landing or a landing of some sort of UFO there.
Yeah, that's right.
Some people describe it as Britain's Roswell. So
Right.
you've got that element to the story, but that woodland, that's got ancient stories and
Now, Drew, you have him back to talk about UFOs.
Yes, we'll definitely
love
get him
UFOs.
back, guys.
Well,
We'll definitely get him back.
you've
Maybe he'll
come to
do
the
it
right
like a
place.
once or every couple of months special for us and come back for a chit chat.
Guys, I would love to.
Neil,
but I
we are
don't want
going to let
hog
you
your
go.
limelight because this is
Oh.
your show, and it's a real privilege to be here and to join you. But I would love to come and talk UFOs with you because that's my new research. I've uncovered quite a cache of UFO reports from the 1950s and 60s and some from World War II
Yeah.
Wow, there you go.
in Great Britain.
Oh, guys.
Different, unseen, unknown, written at the time, not memories going back, witness reports, good stuff.
Well, we definitely need to get him back, guys, okay?
Definitely. Yeah.
Is there anything else coming up, ladies, that you want to tell the guys before we do go?
No, normally I'm on Tuesdays with me and Drew and Sherry, but I don't have anybody lined up for tomorrow, so I guess we'll just play it by ear and see what happens tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a think about. We'll get somebody up. We'll find somebody that wants to
With
come.
me,
for-
it's more just dropping on, isn't it? Just dropping on YouTube and making sure that everyone's all right. I don't mind sitting up on panels like this, but I've got a lot going on in my life at the minute, so I'm not really looking towards the paranormal side at the minute because of that. But
Yeah.
most happy to sit on panels, and I'd have probably like a meditation show. There you go,
Yes.
a meditation show, a music show, or something like that. I like to do all
In
that.
the meantime, you're welcome to keep us company until you're back full
That's what I'm saying. I
time.
don't mind being with you guys.
Yeah.
Don't
Well,
hold
guys, what
the
have we
light
got
for
coming
long.
up
It's
this
a
week?
darn fine light that you have there, lady. It's a
Yeah.
fine light. Don't ever
Me?
you, yes, you
Yeah.
Willow.
Yeah.
Don't ever let someone taint, darken, or
Believe me,
change
I've had
that light.
people try. Believe me, but it
Well,
doesn't work.
They do,
Yeah.
Willow. I know. But
There's
sister,
jealousy with most people. That's
Yes,
what it is.
but sister, have the serenity in your soul. Never. And who am I to say that? I'm just a historian.
But
But
it's actually
Yeah.
nice to hear somebody say that. It is nice to hear that, like, because it does
You're
show
a
that
good
people
soul.
believe in us. You know what I mean? And that is important to us sometimes. So yeah,
It's definitely
I
important.
appreciate. Thank you, Nigel.
Neil.
Neil,
Go on,
sorry.
Neil.
It's okay. Listen, guys, the thing is, we all stick together and we all can feel out each other's energies, and we know when it's time to sit back and enjoy what's going on around us, and then we know when it's time to step to the plate and be there. And it's a great journey. I just love it. Tomorrow night we've got Mystical Love and Lights channel about 9 o'clock UK time. Don't worry, if we've not got a guest, we will find something to talk about. We always do, okay?
Yeah, because as long as we have Drew on, the talking never stops.
I don't so. On Wednesday, we've got Ghost Squad Scotland. Chris and I are talking to, and Dakota is talking to Bishop Brian. So that is going to be really interesting. I can't wait. I can't believe it. And Friday night we've got another show on Ghost Squad Scotland. So keep an eye out, guys, on all the notifications and make sure all the bells are hit. That's all I can say for now. Neil, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and we are going to get you back if you'll come. Is that okay?
I'd be honoured. And my message to everybody out there is just keep well and be kind.
Great message, Neil. Great message.
And to say the last thing, Neil, just so that you know, I told my husband, we're gonna be on with Neil. We're gonna be on with Neil. He's like, who's Neil?
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's booked.
God bless him. God bless him.
Guys, I've got actually Paranormal Hub coming next week. We're in the chat just now. It'll be good. What you saying, Neil? Sorry.
Nice to see you, my darlings. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a
Bye,
great night.
everybody.
Must be everyone. Merry Martin.
Love to sit like this now.
Yeah.